Welcome back to Trekyards Originals, everyone. I am Captain Foley.
And I am, as usual, Commander Cockins. Welcome back, everyone.
And for today's Originals, we are joined once again by the very talented David Bessic. Welcome back, David.
Hey guys, great to be back.
Now, in case you missed it, or don't remember, David has created a complete Star Trek universe and timeline all of his own in the NX era. And we've already covered his Discovery class ship on Originals before. So if you have to go back and watch that, it'll make even more sense. And just, make this one mean even more.
Today, we continue the saga of the Bessic verse, as we're calling it. But this is the Discovery class's replacement, the Javalos class, heavy patrol ship. So without any further delay, let's dive right in and take a look at all the great work that has been done.
This new class of ship is a frigate/heavy patrol ship. She is a fleet support ship with modular mission capability.
And Stuart, you keep mentioning replacement. Is this then the sequel ship and we're a sequel episode? Are we a bit meta here as well?
Absolutely. Go back and watch the other episode, guys. It's a whole universe. Originally launched on April 8th, 2162, with a refit 1 coming out in 2176. Around 773 were constructed by the Trekyards Corporation and the Luna Company between 2162 and 2172. The ship had a length of 204 meters from deflector to end of nacelle and 162 meters from deflector dish to the bow. It had a height of 29 meters from top of nacelle to sensor dome and 23 meters from bridge ceiling to deflector dish. A width of 98 meters from nacelle to nacelle and 66 meters for just the main hull.
It had a crew complement of between 180 and 240, depending on the mission requirements, and an emergency evacuation limit of 550 personnel. The reserve supplies on board lasted for about 2.5 months for a full complement of 240 crew members, meaning it was capable of longer runs, having to be resupplied if the situation called for it.
Sporting two Type CW6 nacelles, it could travel at a top speed range of warp 7.1 for 12 hours, with a standard cruising speed of sustainable 6.2. Emergency warp was available at 7.3, which could be used for short 1-hour bursts, allowing for a cooldown and maintenance period between jumps. This emergency speed had the potential, however, to fuse or burn out the dilithium crystal matrix and warp coil units if not done correctly or if not carefully monitored by the engineering staff.
Armaments include 6 TCP-4 single-barrel phase turrets, 4 P9 point defense phaser close-in weapon system batteries, 6 Mark II photonic torpedo tubes, which had 120 in the fire tubes ready to go, and 60 in storage for rearming, 2 TOSI special weapon deployment systems with a 40 warhead supply, 8 CMZ-7 counter battery defense systems with 160 loaded in the tubes, and 1 Thul beam anti-cloak tachyon detection system, and 1 standard Type DSS-4 deflector shielding system.
Support craft carried on board included 1 Sulu's class warp shuttlecraft, 2 Mark 7 non-warp capable shuttle pods, and 3 Class C worker bees. These ships saw extensive service and action over the years. About 29 of these ships were lost during the Federation-Kzinti War. In 2190, the total left in service was around 744. Again, rough estimation number here.
Very rough guesses on everything here. The Javalos class started out life as the Orfield class, which was on the United Earth Starfleet's drawing boards back in late 2159, designed to serve as a replacement to the Discovery class patrol ship. Taking lessons learned from the war, Starfleet had requested an upsized patrol ship that was still small enough to be mass-produced on the scale required, but large enough to hold its own for longer mission periods. Before the design could be finalized, the war came to an end, meaning Starfleet's priorities had changed drastically.
In the post-war quadrant, piracy had begun to rise seemingly everywhere, as most ships were committed to wartime activities. Stamping this out was one of the Federation's first real challenges as an organization. This, combined with the need for more patrol ships on the newly established neutral zone, generally impacted the design of the new ship. Furthermore, a new and equally dangerous factor was added to the design mix: politics.
While victorious, the Allied powers had suffered greatly at the hands of the Romulans. With this came a dramatic rebalancing of power in the local group. The once revered powers of the Vulcan High Command and Andorian Imperial Guard were shadows of their former selves. The majority of their forces had been destroyed in the Battle of Hell's Gate, and with them went their major starbases and shipyards. This left humanity and the Trekyards to pick up the slack.
The Tellarite Republican Navy was never the major powerhouse it was the Vulcans or the Andorians. However, they did have an exceptionally large industrial capacity. During the second half of the war, Tellarite shipyards were constructing nearly as many human ships for the war effort as was being done in the Sol system, a fact that was critically important for the Allies to replace their staggering losses suffered after the Battle of Hell's Gates.
If the Federation was to practice what it preached, its armed forces would have to also act as an equal representation of its various members. This included very tangible elements such as crew, diversity, and leadership roles, as well as very untangible elements such as ship names and the economics of building and maintaining a united Starfleet. This is how and why the Orfield class underwent a redesign and renaming to the Javalos in 2161, named after an ancient Tellarite god, Javalos, who was known as a protector to those in need. That name was selected.
In addition to the name change, a large number of structural modifications were made in partnership with the Tellar Corp, which when combined with the Andorian weapon systems, Vulcan sensory packages, and Human's Warp 6 engine, made the Javalos class the first truly jointly designed vessel in the Federation Starfleet. While it had its teething problems out of the gate due to it being the very first joint endeavour, the combined forces of the other founding members states poured a truly fantastic level of skill and resources into a single project that would not have been possible otherwise. This resulted in a remarkably fast turnaround in resolving issues with the ship.
Taking its cues from its predecessor, the Discovery class, the Javalos was designed to be as modular as possible to allow for easier refits and mission adaptability. As the years went on, these allowed for the installment of anti-gravity systems, the famed CMZ-7 counter-battery launchers, and much more. It also built in many improvements, including a more powerful conventional deflector dish array, escape pods, and greatly increased cargo capacity.
The Javalos was the first of many ships which would later become known as the First Generation Fleet of the Federation, comprised of ships designed post-war between 2161 and 2175. The ships of First Generation were all co-designed, co-manufactured, and co-crewed by all members of the Federation. This marked a huge turning point for starship design and the stability of the Federation.
As of 2190, 744 Javalos-class ships are still in active service within the Federation. However, new designs are underway to replace both the Agent Discovery and Javalos-class vessels. Starfleet plans to introduce a phased-out retirement for the class beginning in 2196.
Now, we're going to look into the service history of one of these ships in particular, the USS Shanahan MPS 0821. The USS Shanahan, a Javalos class, was commissioned on March 23, 2168 at the Karoga Fleet Yards in orbit of Kara, one of the two moons around Tellar Prime. It is named after a human United Earth Starfleet captain, Dennis Shanahan, captain of a Poseidon-class cruiser Olympia, a well-known hero in the Young Federation.
Captain Shanahan is credited with shifting the balance of one of the most critical engagements of the Romulan War, the Battle of Hell's Gates. On August 22, 2157, the full force of the Romulan war machine came to bear upon the Allied powers, designed to be the endgame to Praetor Dideridex's plan for the Alpha Quadrant.
In what would be the largest fleet battle of the war, it took the combined powers of all available forces in the United Earth Starfleet to hold off the brunt of the attack. Simultaneous attacks reached Andoria, Earth, as well as Vulcan in a sector-spawning battle that lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. If not for the efforts of the United Earth Starfleet, the main Romulan force would have achieved the main objective and surely ended the war.
The outcome of this battle not only changed the course of the war, putting the Romulans on the defensive, but it also forever changed the balance of power in the Alpha Quadrant. With the primary fleets and shipyards of Vulcan and Andorian space forces smashed beyond repair, humanity rose ascendant as the most powerful military and political force in the region. Both Vulcan and Andoria owing a huge debt to humanity afterwards, a debt which sealed the deal on the formation of the Federation a few years later.
The Shanahan was initially deployed to the Romulan neutral zone in 2168, where it conducted border security operations for several years. Worthy events of note were to include Starfleet's first Capharian captain, Zinhi Kip, taking command of the Shanahan in 2171, and the rescue of a Bolian cruiser in 2173, an event which played a major role with the Bolians joining the Federation several years later in 2176.
In 2175, the Shanahan was transferred to the 12th Fleet, an active duty response force headquartered at Starbase 03 within Sector 001. In 2176, the Shanahan would receive its first official refit and was back on duty within 4 months of the refit. As the situation with the Kzinti began to rapidly deteriorate, in 2177, the 12th Fleet was deployed to the Federation Kzinti border.
Initially tasked with fleet flank support operations, as the war progressed, Starfleet began making adjustments to the fleet, both technologically and tactically speaking. Taking advantage of the Javalos class's modular mission design platform, the Shanahan was one of many ships to be specially equipped for advanced missions. As the war progressed, many smaller, unofficial, or field refits occurred.
For the Shanahan, its special missions fell into two categories. These included anti-cloak defense screening, ACDS missions, and orbital ground strike support, OGSS missions. The Shanahan was fitted with a Thulbine anti-cloak tachyon system, as well as a TOSI special weapon deployment system. The Thulbine was an array of 4 antennae that deployed out the main hull and interact with the ship's 4 heavily upgraded inertial dampeners to create a reverberation effect to locate cloaked ships.
The TOSI acted as a special torpedo launcher that carried a wide range of specialized ordnance for space-to-ground strike missions. These included EMP weapon systems, wide-area smart fragmentation warheads, deep ground penetration projectiles, and shield system distributing rounds.
During the course of the war, the Shanahan is credited with destroying 192 drones, 28 Kzinti fighter and shuttlecraft, 4 patrol ships, 1 frigate, and assisted with the destruction of an estimated 23 other enemy vessels. Between 2177 and 2179, 18 crew members of the Shanahan were killed in action and another 42 wounded. Like most ships present in the conflict, the Shanahan was also present at the final battle of the war in orbit of Segroth-Toten.
After the war, the Shanahan was transferred to frontier trade lane security duty, patrolling vital trade lanes on the outskirts of Federation territory where there was less help and often more dangerous criminal forces. Currently, the Shanahan is on duty with the 77th Task Force patrolling trade lanes to Arbizan, not far from Kzinti space.
And there we go, guys. That's the big technical portion. And now is the time of the show we discuss the ship. A nice free form. Work out why, how, who, and just the behind-the-scenes stuff. When, well, we've got a lot of when in this script, Stuart.
Tell us about the universe and the ship, its development from the beginning, kind of thing.
The Javalos class ship is something that I've been trying to design for a while. Actually, it's gone through numerous iterations, and the idea of it was always supposed to kind of fill the role that we just talked about, where it was going to be this tiny little patrol ship that everybody kind of worked together on. It was kind of like the first group project of the Federation, so it was something small, something simple, and something they needed an awful lot of. And it was really a ship that was designed to fill a need, right? So there's a problem. There's piracy on the rise in the Young Federation because all the ships, they were all busy fighting the Romulans. So in reaction to that need, they're like, wow, we really need a new ship that's going to be good at handling this and do a couple other things that are pressing needs for us, like, the neutral zone security and stuff like that. And that really kind of drove what this ship would look like and feel like.
And obviously we talked about the Discovery in a full episode, the Discovery class, and it's clearly an inspired design from an existing ship. This is obviously the next iteration of the Bessic verse, and clearly much more original. Was there any specific inspirations shape-wise that you pulled from? Or...
Yeah, it's kind of, this ship is a hybrid really of the Discovery and where we're taking my universe's design philosophy. Some of the non-Discovery aspects that you see in this, you're going to see doubled down on the next one, which will have obviously nothing to do with the Discovery class. And, and you'll see the connection between this. And we mentioned it for the first time in this episode, that first generation fleet. So for the Federation. So where I'm going with this is when you put all those ships next to each other at the end of the day, and then you put them next to any other Federation ship from any other time period, you'd instantly recognize, oh, this is a first generation fleet ship. And some of the design aspects here are going to be reflective of that. And some of it is functional and some of it is personal taste. A personal taste example would be the hood on the front of the ship, which really kind of stems from that flat rectangular part on the front of the NX. We kind of take that and push it forward and make it bigger. So that's something I'm pulling from the NX just because I like the look of it. That cylindrical component in the middle of the hull, where a lot of the prime guts of the ships are, that is a little bit more reminiscent of the Discovery class, and the way the impulse engines are attached in their design also more reminiscent of the Discovery class. But
now the shape of the saucer you have here kind of is reminiscent to me of one of the ships in Star Trek Armada. I believe the construction ship had like a longer, which I like that look. So I really appreciate that.
And that is it for this week's Trekyards. Wow.
Trekyards, wow. Is that like a new show?
It could be. If you like that idea, then do click into next week and see if it becomes a show name. It won't. But
anyway, the point is, tune in next week. You'll see the rest.
part 2. Bye, guys.